The Renewed Mind, Chapter 1, The Battlefield of the Mind. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. Every war fought on earth is won or lost before the first shot is ever fired. Military strategists have understood for centuries what Scripture stated long before there were military academies. The decisive battle is the one fought in the mind, in the intentions, in the beliefs, in the fears, and in the convictions of the people doing the fighting. The same principle governs your spiritual life. The most important real estate in your entire world is not the ground beneath your feet, not the house with your name on the deed, or the office with your name on the door. It's the 6 inches between your ears. And here's the most uncomfortable part. Most of us have never once walked that property line. We'll renovate a kitchen we use twice a week. We'll wash a car we're just borrowing from time. We'll spend a small fortune maintaining a body that is, by every honest measure, a temporary residence. But the mind, the command center of the entire operation, we leave unattended, unlocked, and apparently zoned for whatever wants to move in. We are diligent landlords of everything except the one property that sets the value of all others. A man will put a fence around his yard, but not a single one around the thought in his mind, and then act genuinely surprised that his life keeps getting trespassed on. We live in a culture that has quietly divorced thinking from consequence. We have been taught to treat the inner life as private, something that belongs to only us and touches no one else. But the Bible tells a very different story. Solomon, identified in Scripture as the wisest man who ever lived, made a startling declaration. A person thinks in his heart, so is he. Not as he speaks, not as he performs, not as he tweets, not as he posts, but as he thinks. What a person rehearses in the privacy of their own mind is what the person is actually becoming. This is either the most liberating sentence you have ever read or the most confronting, and which one it is depends entirely on what you've been thinking, because if your thoughts are quietly drafting your life, then taking responsibility for your thought life is not an advanced spiritual elective, it's the core curriculum. It is the most important work you'll ever do, and the most people manage to graduate from everything else without ever enrolling in it. Watch how it actually works. A person who consistently thinks, I am worthless, does not require anyone else to treat them badly. They will unconsciously arrange their life to conform to the verdict they have already handed down. A person ruled by thoughts of scarcity will make decisions out of fear even while standing in the middle of provision. A person convinced that God is distant and does not really care will pray with no expectation, receive what unbelief tends to receive. They are seeds, and the law of every seed ever planted is that it produces after its own kind. You do not get to plant crabgrass and harvest wheat. The mind is soil, and soil does not editorialize, it simply grows what it is handed. That is why Paul, writing to the believers at Philippi, did not say, try to feel better. He gave them an assignment. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Philippians 4:8. This is not a tip for the spiritually advanced, it's a command. And it is a command about attention. Because Paul understood a principle the renewed mind must learn early. The direction of your focus becomes the direction of your life. The psalmist knew it too. I will set no worthless thing before my eyes. Psalm 101:3. And so did Isaiah, who promised that God will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. That's Isaiah 26:3. What you deliberately set your mind upon becomes, over time, the architecture of your experience. And what you refuse to manage does not politically stay neutral, it simply gets managed by something else. The war for your mind. If the mind is that valuable, you can be certain it is contested. There is an enemy, and he is not contrary to how we often live, primarily interested in your bank account or your reputation. He is interested in your mind because he knows exactly what God knows. Control the mind, and you have effectively controlled the life. The Apostle Peter, a man who knew something firsthand about losing a battle inside his own head, having once talked himself straight out of courage and straight into denial beside a fire, wrote with urgency of personal experience. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. That's 1 Peter 5:8. Pay attention to the verb holding, and then pay attention to the sound. A lion at full roar is not a lion that is hunting, it is a lion that is performing. Those who study the animal will tell you the roar is not the kill shot, it's the scare tactic. The roar is engineered to do one thing: freeze the prey long enough that running is no longer an option. That is the enemy's entire business model in the mind. He rarely has authority to destroy you outright. He settles for something cheaper and nearly as effective. He occupies your minds with enough fear, shame, and noise that you'll neutralize yourself and then call it humility. He does not need to win a war if he can get you to forfeit it on account of the weather. Paul named this strategy plainly to the church at Corinth. The moment you recognize that the battlefield is your mind, you stop being a passive victim of your own thoughts and start being an active participant in the war. You cannot fight what you refuse to see. We are not unaware of his schemes. 2 Corinthians 2:11. The word translated schemes in the Greek is noimata, literally thoughts or mental designs. The enemy's strategy is a thought strategy. He doesn't show up wearing a costume and carrying a pitchfork. He shows up wearing your own voice, suggesting your own conclusions, sounding remarkably like a plain common sense. He has been running the identical play since the garden, where he opened not with an attack, but with a question. Did God really say? Because he discovered early that you don't have to overpower a mind, you can simply misinform. But here is the turn, and it may be the most important sentence in this chapter. Awareness is the beginning of victory. Many people are not, strictly speaking, losing the battlefield for their mind. They simply have not been informed that there is one. They assume the intrusive thought, the spiraling worry, the familiar self-contempt is just who they are. It's not who they are. It's just what got planted. And thank God, what got planted can be pulled up. It would be easy to assume that God's interest in your thought life is about supervision, that he is monitoring the inner channel for violations, clipboard in hand, ready to dock points. This is not it at all. God pursues your mind for the same reason a good doctor pursues the source of the symptom rather than just the symptom itself. He knows the mind is the gateway to everything else: your emotions, your decisions, your relationships, your habits, even your destiny. All of it flows downstream from the way you think. Above all else, guard your heart, Solomon wrote, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. God is not nitpicking the headwaters. He is healing the whole river. That is why Romans 12:2 uses the word, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The word translated transformed is metamorpho, the very same word used to describe the moment on the mountain when the inner glory of Jesus became visible on the outside in Matthew 17:2. Transformation, in God's vocabulary, is never cosmetic. It is not God rearranging the furniture of your personality or coaching you to behave a little better in public. It's inner restructuring so genuine that the outside finally has no choice but to reflect it. The caterpillar is the standing example. It does not become a better caterpillar, a faster crawler, a more motivated worm. It becomes something with an entirely different relationship to gravity. So God is not standing over you asking you to try harder, think happier thoughts, and stop bothering him about it. He's inviting you into a process. And process is exactly the right word, because this is not a single dramatic event, but a daily repeatable and unspectacular reworking of the way you think before you even get a vote. Paul told the Corinthians that we are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory. 2 Corinthians 3:18. Present tense, ongoing, in stages. That is the promise of a new renewed mind, not the white-knuckled management of bad thoughts forever, but the global, genuine arrival of new ones. And it begins right here, with a decision that costs you nothing but a little honesty. The decision to admit that the battlefield is real, the stakes are high, and the victory God is offering is not someday in heaven victory. It's available, addressed to you, on the ground, in the 6 inches that matter most. Key truths. Your mind is the most valuable property you own, and for most people, the most neglected. Thoughts are not neutral, they are seeds, and every seed produces after its own kind. The enemy's strategy is a thought strategy. He misinforms the mind he cannot overpower. The roar is designed to free you. Awareness of the battle is the beginning of winning it. God pursues your mind because it is the gateway to everything else he wants to heal. Take it further. If someone could read a transcript of your most frequent automatic thoughts, what would they conclude that you believe about yourself, about God, about your future? Where in your life are you carefully renovating the kitchen, managing the visible, while leaving the mind itself unattended? Identify one occurring thought you have always assumed is simply who you are. What if it's not? Where might it first have been planted? Think on these things until the next time, and many blessings to you. Thank you for your time.